it's Stephanie Dixon and welcome to The Wedge TV. This is a place to be inspired, to gain knowledge so that you can take more action to live more consciously. Have you ever had that niggling feeling inside that you were meant to do something more, that you wanted to go deeper, that you had something unique to bring, but you weren't sure what it was yet? Well, if so, then you're in for a treat because today we're exploring how to work your light with the wonderful Rebecca Campbell.
Yay.
So we're going to be talking today about Rebecca Campbell's book, Light is the New Black, and she is a best-selling HayHouse author, an inspirational teacher and speaker, and an intuitive. So this is kind of weird because I have known Bex for 16 years. She used to babysit me, and here we are chatting about your book. This is just amazing to be here and talking about this.
I know, I love it, and I'm just so proud of you and all the stuff you're doing with the Wedge stuff.
Oh, you're so lovely, thank you. So I'd like to start today by talking a little bit about your career prior to getting to this amazing book today.
Mm-hmm.
So I know, you went down the advertising route. You were climbing the corporate ladder. You won countless awards for your creativity, which is just amazing. And you ended up being the creative director for a 500 Fortune 500 company before you were even 30, which is just like a huge career behind you. So tell us a little bit about that journey and what some of the big lessons you really took from those experiences.
So I think the most important thing to say to start with is when I was really young, I had my first spiritual awakening, and I remember being in a bookstore, and it's actually how I became friends with your mum, because she was the only other weird person I knew who was into spiritual stuff. I was like 18, and I don't know how old your mum was, but anyway, I remember picking up my first book, and it was actually by Louise Hay. It's called You Can Heal Your Life, which is an amazing book. And that's what your mum Sheila and I bonded over, actually, or one of the things. And I remember picking it off the shelf and I had this knowing that was the kind of thing I was meant to do, i.e. write books and be part of like that creating concepts and content and teaching the lessons to do with helping people get to know who they are at soul level. But at the time I was so young and I had no idea what it meant, and I doubted myself because I looked at all the authors and all of them had like been divorced or been obese and then halved their weight, or experienced proper heartache and hardships, and at that time in my life I hadn't, and so I felt like I didn't really have anyone who had walked that path before me. And so I remember actually praying that bad stuff had happened to me so I'd have something to talk about, and I was blessed. Nothing bad really happened to me beyond the normal stuff. And so what I decided to do, I knew I wanted to be part of the raising of the consciousness, and so I decided to go undercover as what I would call, and I write about in the book, undercover light worker. So I chose to go into advertising because I saw how advertising just reached billions of people with so many messages over and over and over again, and I believe that everything's energy. And so when you're putting like an ad out there or whatever and people are being bombarded with it, I wanted to put positive energy out there.
Yeah.
And so, it was a pretty challenging route to take, I must say. And to be honest, I think back then I was really in my masculine rather than my feminine. And I think both of us, whether you're a man or a woman, we've got both of those energies. And so I was really into the striving, the hard working. And I know you're an 8 numerologically. We're the same number. And so I know you relate to that.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I think I chose it because it was one of the hardest paths for me to do. And I remember just deciding, okay, well, what's my goal here? Okay, I want to be a creative director in London, award-winning by the time I'm 30, and it was hard work. It wasn't like it was easy. It was hard work, but I prided myself on being able to work hard, being able to do the long hours, being able to just withstand it all. And I did. But the thing is, that niggle, that voice that said that, no, that whisper, it was always there.
Yeah.
So I was always in touch with that intuitive part of me, and along the way, training up it was just my passion, really. Reading as much as I could, training up as much as I could, but I never felt ready. And because I felt myself that in order to succeed, it had to be hard work, and I really thought it was a good thing to be working hard, you know. And so it wasn't until just before my 30th birthday, the life that I'd really consciously created, I could feel it just crumbling away, and I knew that I needed to answer that call that I had within me. And you know, I think when you ignore that call, what happens is the universe steps in. And so around the same time, it was like a lot of my life just crumbled. Where I was like, you know, decade-long relationship. One of my dearest friends, who was one of the only people who truly, one of the only ones who I showed my whole self to, like that bigger self to. He passed away suddenly, and then another. It was just like, and then all of a sudden it was like this career, I just knew it didn't fit my soul anymore. And and so in a way that was like such a difficult time, but it was also, you know, in the darkness when it's like the universe turns off all the lights, and then we have no choice but to find our own. And I remember, and I know actually your mum, Sheila, she's my best friend. She was my bridesmaid at my wedding just this a couple of weeks ago. I remember Sheila actually saying to me when she went through a really difficult time of it being so dark, and having that moment of like, okay, I need to, do I find that inner light within me or not? And the best thing about the darkness is that it's when you can see the light the most. And so that's what it was for me. And and so from that time on, I was like, okay, cool, time to align the life, time to edge my way out of advertising and jump full on into what I was born to do. You know, I really think that, you know, we may have like a larger calling, all of us, but our calling might change constantly. It doesn't mean that my time in advertising was not meant to happen. I truly believe it was meant to happen. But there comes a time where if we don't answer the whisper, life intervenes.
You know, that's so interesting that's, you know, how you phrase that life intervenes and other things sort of almost force the change to happen, right? So I guess that was a little over 2 years ago, right? So within that time, you've now produced your first book, you know, best-selling author. So how did that happen in such a short period of time? And do you think that your advertising background really helped give you that launch pad? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. And there is no such thing as a coincidence, you know, like that was really training for me. I think it's worth saying that, like, in those 2 years, it wasn't just like I was like, oh, now I'm going to do this. I've been working at it for a long time. I just didn't feel ready. And the issue was that was part of the problem, actually, because I was like, I was ready a long time before that. But you know, but then we need to wait until we actually feel ready. And so for me, it was a process of aligning my life. So I was in a bit of a spiritual closet. Like, my closest friends knew the depth of what my beliefs and you know what I write about in the book, but a lot of people in my life and parts of my life just weren't aligned with that. And so it was really a matter of like really answering the baby calls rather than this huge big one. So while, you know, it's all well and good for me to say now, oh, I always knew and da-da-da-da-da, but, you know, Steve Jobs said, he says, the dots only join in the end. And so looking back, I see how, but of course, but if there's anyone listening who is kind of like, oh, but I don't know what mine is, like, don't worry, you will. You'll look back and you'll be like, oh, I always knew. You know? And so the advice I'd give to someone who is like, I don't really know what it is, but I know it's not this, is there's two things I'd suggest. One is develop a daily spiritual practice. Meditation, ideally. You can, I can give you my website's rebeccacampbell.me, and there is a thing there, you can get a free meditation. Show up to that every day. 10 minutes is enough, but just show up to it daily, because our soul's always calling us in the direction of our highest path and purpose, and it's not necessary. It's about the little trail, the little crumbs, following them every single day, rather than being like, okay, I need the full-on plan before I even move, you know?
Yes, I think I need to take that advice.
Yeah. And then the other thing I would say is just follow the things that light you up. And by that I mean the things that inspire you, the things that fascinate you, the things that you just love doing, the things that energize you. So for me, what I did is that when I asked myself what lights me up, what fills my spirit, the answer I got was flowers and nature. Okay. And so I ended up, at first I was like, well, that's just ridiculous, what a stupid thing, like how is that going to help me on my path? But I know now that that often you know it's your intuition when it doesn't make sense. So I said, okay, great. So I started buying myself flowers. Yeah. And then those flowers, so they just fill up. I gave myself a £20, because I live in England, £20 budget to go to the London flower markets every single week. And at first, I just like, I couldn't bear to spend £20 because it just felt like extravagant. So I bought the cheapest ones. And then eventually I was like, no, that's ridiculous. Ask my spirit, what does it need? And that's when I discovered the peony rose, which is by far my favorite flower. And you know, it's the beauty of that. So as my heart was quite heavy and quite closed and yeah, just really going through like those trial times, as that flower, it starts like tight as a bud like that, and as it opens and opens and opens and opens, it's like my heart begun to, without me even trying, and then more and more and more and more and more, and then this flower, it just keeps on opening. And so my heart was opening at the same time, and I discovered how important beauty is in inspiring me. And that word inspire, in spirit, it gets you in your spirit, and when you're in your spirit, you're in flow with the universe, because your spirit's connected to source. And so those little trails, and so I found, oh wow, I'm really inspired here, and it inspired me to go into nature every day, go and walk, and I discovered the Regent's Park Rose Garden. And then while I was there, I tapped into this part of me which I'd forgotten about since I was a young teenager, where I just hear the whispers of my soul. And I started writing them down, and that became, I did like an Instagram feed, I called it Rebecca Thoughts, and then that turned into my instant guidance oracle on my website, and my blog, and then a book proposal, and then my book. And I remember I was putting the last like literally the last words, the last sentence of my book, Light is the New Black, in, and then, you know, when you're writing a book, you never think it's done. Then there is a point where you just have to decide it. And so I'm like, okay, this is the last bit. I clicked on my laptop file and save. And then I looked up, and I was right in the center of Regent's Park Rose Garden, where I'd written the whole thing. And it just took my breath away, because had I waited until I had the vision of the book and what it was and all of that, it wouldn't have happened. But it was by literally just asking myself, okay, what lights me up? What will turn my light on just a little bit more? Baby steps. And then all of a sudden there's a book. I mean, you got to show up every day to it, but yeah, that's the power of kind of not losing yourself in the grand vision of it all. Yeah.
No, I think that's really interesting to actually, you know, it's the baby steps and actually taking action, even if it is really small. And I love that you've said that and encapsulated that in such a beautiful story, to make your book and that you've, you know, it was starting your Instagram and then building up through there. I think that's the thing, you know, when people are looking at a big vision, or as you said, you know, maybe they don't know what it is, and you're looking at this big picture and like, how am I ever going to achieve that dream? But it's just about digesting it and making it small pieces, and then it will just keep rolling. And I
exactly, and I think the key there as well is that be unattached to the outcome.
Right.
So for me, while I also knew that the publisher I'm with, HayHouse, was the publisher I wanted to be with.
Yeah.
But I didn't get the call from them until I cut off from wanting to be with them. I was like, well, my book's going to happen regardless now. Phone call that same day. You know? And I think that's the thing, particularly in this age of instant gratification with social media and all of that, and comparison and fame and all of that kind of stuff. It's like, be unattached to the outcome. Do it because it lights you up.
Yeah.
Forget about any recognition. All of that is bonus, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Doesn't matter. Just do what is yours. Do what you're here to do, and I believe what we're here to do is the things that light us up.
Yeah.
Things that are, it doesn't mean that we don't, it's not hard work as in we show up every day and we're disciplined, but it should be a joy to do.
Absolutely. So if you were to sort of, obviously we heard a little bit about the journey there, but if you were to hone in on what really inspired you to write the book and where that inspiration really came from, aside from being in the nature and everything, what was that?
Well, really, I wrote the book to me.
Okay.
And when I say that, I mean me in all the different ages that I was, because I believe that I'm not alone in the way that I was feeling in this deep desire to serve and be of service and to help raise the consciousness and raise the vibration. I know I'm not alone in that, and so I just wrote it to me because I knew that there were many of me's out there. And it's so amazing because I didn't know that would work, but it was just the only thing I really could do. Because really, I guess I was encouraging myself the whole time to step out of the spiritual closet, to leap, to be courageous. And so, yeah, it was like my own little pep-up talk. And some of it is me writing to myself at 13, 15, 20, 30, all of that. And some of it is almost like the universe or God or whatever you want to call it, writing to me. And me receiving that. So that's most of the book, really. And one of the most common comments I get is people going, "It's like you wrote it to me," which I just love because it's like that's exactly that. I just love that.
Yeah, very rewarding and gratifying that you've got people who are saying that to you. I love that.
That's because I think with your art or your creations, whatever it is that you're here to do, it's like I believe that it's like, particularly with writing. I heard a quote and I wrote about it in the book. I don't know who said it because I saw it on Facebook somewhere, but it says, "I don't share these things because, I want to impress someone or teach someone or convince someone. I share them so that others who feel the same feel less alone." And I just love that. And that's really, I think, a big part of the driving force of why I wrote that book.
Yeah, that's lovely. So one thing that comes up quite a lot throughout the book is this idea of consciousness and this idea of being awake and cracking open. So I was wondering, if for the community out there, for the Wedge, being conscious is a really big thing for us. We're very passionate about building a conscious community and being part of the conscious movement that's happening around the world, as you're talking about. So what are a few practical things or a few simple things that our community can maybe do to be a bit more awake and conscious on a daily basis that you would say?
First thing, I've said it before and I'll say it again, meditate. Okay. Meditate every day. Just do it. Like, you meditate, don't you?
I do.
Yeah. Just showing up to that in a non-negotiable way, in a disciplined way, because with spiritual practice, I used to be like a total dabbler. I could do like a whole weekend devoted to vision boarding and workshops and all of that. But the moment I'd have a crap day, that's when my spiritual practice slipped. And that's when I needed it the most. And, there's that quote, and I always get quotes wrong, but it's along the lines of, it's like, on a normal day, meditate for 10 minutes. If you're busy, meditate for an hour. Because it really does make time stretch. And when you meditate, you connect in with that universal flow, that spirit, that soul, the voice of your intuition. And I believe that when you're in sync with your intuition, what happens is that your brain can make leaps and bounds that your rational mind couldn't. Einstein said that the intuitive mind is a sacred gift. The rational mind, it's faithful servant. But we've created a society that worships the servant and dismisses the sacred gift. And so, as far as I'm concerned, the number one thing that we can do, particularly even if you're just in a CEO, hug or bit intuition. Work that muscle. And I believe that the best way to do that is meditation.
And I love that idea of comparing it to a muscle as well, because that's the thing, it's not just going to happen overnight. These things are an investment. It's anything, if you want to get a six-pack, you're going to have to work on it.
Well,
if you want to be more intuitive. Yes, especially after all the Christmas festivities. Okay, so I know you've got 2 more books coming out, so let's just, get everyone a little bit excited about what's coming.
For sure. Yeah, I'm working on one at the moment, which is, it's due to be out in October 2016, which is this year, because we are in 2016 now. And that's called Rise, Sister, Rise. And yeah, so that's coming, and I'm quite excited about that. It's kind of too early to give the blurb of what it's about, but it's it's feeling quite potent and very exciting. It's very much a call to action. It's like the next step on from That Is the New Black. And then the one after that, I don't have a date yet. I'd say it'll be 2017. That's called You Got the Love.
Okay.
And that's all about developing the most important relationship that you'll ever have, which is with yourself, and the difference between like codependence and love and falling in love versus and your relationship with divinity. So that's they're the 2 ones that are coming, and they're being written at the same time actually, which is a bit crazy, but
a nice challenge.
That's the way they're coming. Yeah. Thank you, creative muses.
Okay, so do you have a final wedge of wisdom or words that you live by?
One of my favorite quotes is by Joan of Arc.
Okay.
Who says that I'm not afraid, I was born to do this, which I just love. And so I think that's a great thing to put like above your desk when you're working or whatever. And then also I'd just like to add, if you're afraid, it's a really good sign that you're facing the right direction.
I love that. Fear is a big thing. We should embrace it.
Absolutely. It's like, my teachers always told me if you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing.
Yeah. But it's hard to be uncomfortable sometimes.
It is, but hey, that's why we're here, to grow.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for sharing everything with you. Love the advice. I'm really excited for your new books and everything that's going to happen in this next year for you.
Yay, thank you. Thanks,
So for everyone out there, make sure you grab a copy of Rebecca Campbell's Light is the New Black so that you can work your light and find your calling. And if you do find it, or if you want to tell us about, any insights you got from today's episode, let us know. Leave a comment, leave a question for Bex. We'll get her to answer it. And thank you so much for watching this episode of The Wedge TV. If you liked it, share it and subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next time. We hope that you learned something today so that you can take more action to live more consciously tomorrow. Thank you.